The snow had turned crimson where she fell, and Alpha King Thorn Blackridge knew 3 things instantly. This dying Omega was his true mate. She bore fresh rejection marks on her neck, and whoever cast her out had signed their own death warrant. He'd been walking the north perimeter of his estate when the blizzard hit, a wall of white that turned the world into a screaming void. Most wolves would have turned back. Thorn kept walking. 20 years as Alpha King had taught him that the worst threats came during the worst storms. That's when he caught her scent. Honeysuckle and rain, fading fast under the copper tang of blood. His wolf surged forward, ripping control from him in a way it hadn't done since he was a boy. Thorn let it happen. The beast knew what he was still processing. Mate, dying, find her now. She was half buried in a snowdrift at the base of the ridge, her dark hair matted with ice and blood. Someone had stripped her to almost nothing before dumping her here. The rejection marks on her neck were fresh, the skin around them still angry and inflamed. Thorn dropped to his knees beside her, his hands surprisingly gentle as he checked for a pulse. There, weak, but there. He stripped off his coat and wrapped her in it, lifting her against his chest. She barely weighed anything. "Stay with me," he growled, though her eyes remained closed. "That's an order." His wolf howled in anguish at her stillness. The walk back to the summit grounds took 20 minutes that felt like 20 hours. The Winter Moon Summit brought together every major pack in the Northern Territories, which meant his estate was currently crawling with alphas, betas, and enough political tension to choke on. None of that mattered now. He kicked open the door to his private wing, ignoring the startled yelps from servants. "Someone find Healer Marin, now." By the time he laid the Omega on his bed, and damn what anyone thought about that, Marin was already rushing through the door, her healing bag in hand. The old woman took one look at the girl, and her weathered face went pale. "My king, is this—" "My mate," Thorn said flatly. "Save her." Marin's hands worked quickly, checking vitals, examining wounds. The rejection marks made her hiss through her teeth. Fresh, less than 12 hours old, and look at the bruising. Someone beat her badly before the rejection. Thorn's claws extended involuntarily, shredding the bedpost beneath his grip. "Can you heal her?" "Her body, yes." "Her wolf?" Marin shook her head. Rejection trauma this severe, combined with what looks like years of abuse, her wolf may have retreated too deep to reach. Then reach deeper. "It doesn't work that way, my king." Thorn forced himself to step back, to let Marin work. He watched as she cleaned wounds, applied salves, wrapped bandages. The Omega, his mate, never stirred. Her face was bruised, one eye swollen shut. Whoever had done this had been thorough. "I'll need to examine her more closely," Marin said quietly. "There may be internal injuries." It took 3 hours. 3 hours of standing there watching this stranger who was somehow his mate fight for every breath. When Marin finally stepped back, she looked troubled. "She'll live. Her body is strong, despite everything. But my king, I need to tell you something." "Tell me." Marin's hand shook as she held up a small vial of the Omega's blood. In the lamplight, it glowed with a faint silver sheen. "I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me at first. But there's no mistaking it. This girl, she's a lunar Omega." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. "That's impossible," Thorn said. "The lunar bloodline died out 3 centuries ago." "Apparently not." Marin set the vial down carefully. "Which means someone knew what she was and tried to kill her for it. Or," she paused, "they had no idea what they were throwing away." Thorn moved to the bedside, looking down at his mate's battered face. A lunar Omega. The rarest of the rare. In the old stories, they could amplify an alpha's power tenfold, create bonds between packs that couldn't be broken, turn the tide of wars with their very presence. They could also destroy an alpha who tried to force them, drive him mad with power he couldn't control. "Who else knows?" he asked. "Just you and me, for now." "Keep it that way." Maren nodded and gathered her things. At the door, she paused. My king, the mate bond. Can you feel it? Like a hook in my chest, Thorn admitted. And her? Nothing. She can't feel it at all. The healer's expression softened with something like pity. The rejection broke something in her. It may take time for her wolf to trust again. To trust you. After Maren left, Thorn pulled a chair to the bedside and sat. Outside, the blizzard raged on. Inside, the only sound was his mate's shallow breathing. He should be at the summit. There were treaties to negotiate, territorial disputes to settle, 100 matters demanding the Alpha King's attention. Instead, he sat vigil over an Omega who didn't even know his name. His wolf paced restlessly, wanting to mark her, claim her, make sure every wolf in the territory knew she was his. But one look at the rejection marks on her neck made him sick. She'd been marked before, claimed before, then cast aside like garbage. I don't know if you can hear me, he said quietly. But you're safe now. I give you my word. No one will hurt you again. She didn't respond. He hadn't expected her to. Sarah woke to warmth. It was so unfamiliar that at first she didn't recognize the sensation. For 2 years, she'd been cold. Marcus had forbidden her to use the heat in winter, said Omegas generated their own warmth if they were worth anything. Toward the end, he'd taken her blankets too. But now she was warm and soft, and her eyes flew open. This wasn't her basement room. She didn't know what this was. A bedroom fit for royalty, all dark wood and rich fabrics. Morning light streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows. She was lying in the biggest bed she'd ever seen, wrapped in blankets that probably cost more than she'd ever owned. Panic clawed up her throat. Where was she? How did she get here? The last thing she remembered was Marcus dragging her into the woods, the blizzard, the cold seeping into her bones. You're awake! Sarah's head whipped toward the voice, then immediately regretted the movement as pain lanced through her skull. A man sat in a chair beside the bed. Not just any man, an alpha. She could feel the power rolling off him even through her muted senses. He was huge, broad-shouldered and dark-haired, with eyes like storm clouds. Handsome in a way that made her want to look away. Dangerous in a way that made her want to run. Don't try to move too quickly, he said, his voice gentler than she'd expected. You've been unconscious for 2 days. 2 days? Sarah's hand went to her neck, feeling for the rejection marks. They were still there, still tender. So it had been real. Marcus had really... My name is Thorn Blackridge, the Alpha said. I found you in the blizzard. You were dying. Blackridge. The name hit her like a physical blow. You're the Alpha King. I am. This had to be a nightmare, some fever dream her dying mind had conjured. Alpha Kings didn't rescue worthless Omegas from snowdrifts. Why? Why did I save you? Thorn leaned forward slightly. Because you're my mate. Sarah actually laughed, though it came out more like a sob. No, that's not possible. I don't have a mate. Marcus said... She cut herself off. Marcus. The way Thorn said the name made it sound like a curse. The one who rejected you? She nodded, mute. He lied to you. Thorn's jaw tightened. You are my mate. I felt the bond the moment I caught your scent. My wolf recognized you instantly. I don't feel anything, Sarah whispered. It was true. Where the mate bond should have been, there was only emptiness. Her wolf had been silent since the rejection, and even now, faced with the Alpha King himself, she felt nothing but fear. Something flickered across Thorn's face. Pain, maybe? Or disappointment. The healer says the rejection damaged your wolf. It may take time. Or you're lying. The words came out before she could stop them. Sarah flinched, waiting for the blow that always followed her speaking out of turn. It didn't come. Thorn just looked at her steadily. I'm not Marcus, and I don't lie. especially not about something like this. Then you're mistaken, Sarah said desperately. I'm nobody. I'm not even a good Omega. Marcus said so. I can't cook right. I'm too clumsy. I talk too much. Stop. The command in Thorne's voice made her freeze. I don't care what Marcus said. He was a fool who didn't deserve you. Sarah shook her head. This was too much. Too strange. Why am I in your room? Because you're my mate. Where else would you be? The servants' quarters, the basement, anywhere but... She gestured helplessly at the luxurious space around them. Thorne stood, and Sarah pressed back against the headboard instinctively. He stopped immediately, his hands raised slightly. I'm not going to hurt you, ever. But I need you to understand something. You're not a servant. You're not going to the basement. You're my mate, which makes you my queen. This is your room now, your home. This is insane, Sarah breathed. Yes, Thorne agreed. It probably is, but it's also true. Before Sarah could respond, there was a knock at the door. Thorne's expression darkened. What? An older woman entered. The healer, Sarah guessed from her bag. My king, I need to check on our patient. And you have visitors. The summit delegates are getting restless. They can wait. My king, they can wait. The healer gave him a look that suggested she'd known him since childhood and wasn't impressed by his authority. At least let me examine her while you compose yourself. Thorne looked like he wanted to argue, but finally nodded. He turned to Sarah, and for just a moment, the hard edges of the Alpha King softened into something almost vulnerable. I'll be right outside. If you need anything... I won't, Sarah said quickly. He studied her for a long moment, then left. The healer, Marin, she introduced herself as, was efficient and kind as she checked Sarah's injuries. You're healing well, better than I expected, actually. When can I leave? Sarah asked. Marin paused in her examination. Leave? Child, you've only just woken up. I can't stay here. This is... Sarah's voice dropped to a whisper. This is the Alpha King's room. When he realizes his mistake... There's no mistake, Marin said firmly. The mate bond doesn't lie. Even if you can't feel it yet, he can. And I've known Thorne Blackridge for 30 years. I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you. He doesn't even know me. He knows enough. Marin finished her examination and sat on the edge of the bed. Can I tell you something? Sarah nodded hesitantly. You're not the first Omega I've treated for abuse. Won't be the last, unfortunately. But you are the first one I've seen who survived what you survived. Marin's eyes were kind but serious. Someone wanted you dead, Sarah. They tried very hard to make sure you died. But you didn't. You're here. And now you have the most powerful Alpha in the Northern Territories swearing to protect you. That's not nothing. It's too much, Sarah whispered. Maybe. But it's yours anyway. After Marin left, Sarah lay in the massive bed, staring at the ceiling. Nothing about this made sense. Alpha Kings didn't have Omega mates. They married powerful she-wolves from important families. They certainly didn't claim broken, worthless Omegas that their own mates had thrown away. This had to be some kind of game, some cruel test. But when she closed her eyes, she could still feel the gentleness in Thorne's hands as he'd carried her. Could still hear the raw honesty in his voice when he'd promised she was safe. Marcus had never been gentle. Marcus had never promised safety. Maybe, Sarah thought as exhaustion pulled her under again, maybe that was the difference. Wanting to see what would happen next, subscribe to this channel to get to listen to more of our upcoming exciting stories. Click on the subscribe button now. Thank you. Chapter 2. Sarah had been in the palace for 5 days, and she was drowning. Not literally, though some mornings she woke gasping as if she were. No, she was drowning in silk and ceremony, in watchful eyes and whispered conversations that stopped the moment she entered a room. The palace was beautiful and suffocating in equal measure, and every hour she spent within its walls made her feel smaller. Thorne had given her space after that first morning. Too much space, maybe. He still slept in his room. Their room, he insisted, but on a couch by the fireplace while Sarah occupied the massive bed. He left before she woke and returned after she'd pretended to fall asleep. The consideration should have comforted her. Instead, it made her suspicious. Marcus had been considerate too at first. "You need to eat more," Maren said, eyeing Sarah's barely touched breakfast tray. The healer visited every morning, more companion than medical necessity at this point. "I'm not hungry." "You're never hungry." Maren set down her tea with a decisive clink. "The king is concerned. The king can stop worrying about me and focus on his summit." Sarah immediately regretted the sharp tone. Maren had been nothing but kind. "I'm sorry, I just want to disappear," Maren finished gently. "Become invisible again?" Yes. God, yes. Sarah had spent 2 years learning to take up no space, make no sound, need nothing. Now she was sleeping in the Alpha King's bed, wearing clothes that cost more than Marcus's entire house, and everyone was looking at her. "You have court this afternoon," Maren said. Sarah's stomach clenched. "I never agreed to that. The king wants to introduce you. The rumors are already spreading. Better to control the narrative." "What rumors?" Maren hesitated, which told Sarah everything. "That you're a political plant, a spy from the Eastern Pax. That Thorn has been enchanted. That you're—" She trailed off. "Worthless," Sarah supplied bitterly. "Defective, because I am. Whatever Thorn thinks he feels, it's—" A knock at the door interrupted her. Not Thorn's knock. His was distinctive, somehow both respectful and commanding. This knock was brisker, more businesslike. A woman entered before Sarah could respond. She was tall and lean, with dark skin and close-cropped hair, wearing leather armor that suggested she'd rather be training than visiting invalids. Her eyes, sharp and assessing, swept over Sarah with the efficiency of someone who dealt in threats for a living. "So you're the one causing all the chaos," the woman said. Not unkindly, but not particularly warmly either. "Kenna," Maren said with barely concealed amusement. "You could try being welcoming." "I'm plenty welcoming. I just don't believe in coddling." Kenna crossed her arms. "I'm Kenna Ironclaw, beta female to the king. He's assigned me as your protector and trainer." Sarah blinked. "I don't need a protector?" "Yes, you do. There are at least 3 packs at this summit who would love to see you disappear. The Silverthorns, the Bloodmoons, and the Rivercrest delegation, which I'm told includes your charming ex-mate." The room tilted slightly. "Marcus is here? Arrived 2 days ago with his alpha. Hasn't asked to see you if you're wondering. Seems content to spread stories about how unstable you were. How the rejection was a mercy." Kenna's lip curled. "I've met him. He's exactly the kind of coward who beats women and calls it strength." Sarah's hands were shaking. She hid them in the folds of her borrowed dress. "I can't do this. Court, training, any of it. I just want—" "What? To run?" Kenna pulled up a chair and sat backward on it, arms folded over the back. "The king said you might try. That's why he assigned me. I'm very good at tracking runners." "I'm not a prisoner." "No," Kenna agreed. "You're a queen who doesn't know it yet. There's a difference. I'm an Omega who—" "Stop." Kenna's voice cracked like a whip. "I'm going to give you some advice, and you're going to listen. Whatever that bastard told you about yourself, forget it. Omegas aren't weak. They're not worthless. In my pack, before we joined the king's territory, Omegas were honored. They were healers, mediators, the heart of the pack." She leaned forward. "You want to know what I see when I look at you?" Sarah didn't, but Kenna didn't wait for an answer. "I see someone who survived 2 years of abuse and a rejection that should have killed her. I see someone who walked through a blizzard that would have stopped trained warriors. I see someone strong enough to make the most powerful alpha I've ever known look at her like she's his whole world." Kenna's expression softened slightly. "That's not weakness, Sarah. That's steel." Sarah's throat tightened. She wanted to believe it. God, she wanted to believe it. But belief was dangerous. Hope was dangerous. "The court thing," she said finally. Can I at least know what to expect? Maren and Kenna exchanged glances. It was Maren who spoke. The court is complicated right now. The summit has drawn nobles from across the territories, and many of them had expectations for who Thorn would choose as his queen. Lady Morgana Silverthorn, Kenna said bluntly, daughter of the most powerful noble family in the Western Territories. Beautiful, educated, politically connected. She and Thorn have been dancing around a political marriage for years. Then he should marry her, Sarah said immediately. Problem solved. Except he doesn't want her, Kenna said. He wants you, and Morgana knows it, which makes you a problem she needs to solve. The court assembled in the Great Hall at midday, and Sarah spent 2 hours being dressed for it like a doll. The servants Thorn had assigned to her, 3 women who seemed genuinely excited to help, brought out dress after dress, until Sarah wanted to scream. She finally settled on something simple, a deep blue gown that didn't feel too ostentatious, with long sleeves that covered the worst of her healing bruises. They wanted to do something elaborate with her hair. She convinced them to leave it loose. They wanted to paint her face. She let them do the bare minimum. When she finally looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. The woman staring back looked like someone who belonged in a palace. The illusion would shatter the moment she opened her mouth, but for now, it was convincing. Kenna appeared at her door in formal armor, looking like she was preparing for battle rather than court. Ready? No. Good answer. The ones who think they're ready are usually the first to fall. Kenna offered her arm. Stay close to me. Don't respond to provocations. And if anyone touches you without permission, I'm authorized to break their fingers. That seems extreme. You haven't met these people yet. The Great Hall was exactly as intimidating as Sarah had feared. Massive and ornate, with vaulted ceilings and windows that let in streams of cold sunlight. What felt like hundreds of wolves filled the space. Alphas in fine clothes, betas in formal armor, omegas and pack members in their best attire. The smell of so many predators in one place made Sarah's instincts scream. Conversations died as she entered. Every eye turned toward her. Sarah forced herself to keep walking, to keep her chin up even though she wanted to curl into herself and disappear. Kenna's steady presence beside her was the only thing keeping her feet moving. Thorn stood at the far end of the hall on a raised dais, and the sight of him made something in Sarah's chest tighten. He wore black and silver, formal but not ornate, and he radiated authority like heat. His eyes found hers immediately across the crowded room, and for a moment, everything else fell away. Then a woman stepped into Sarah's path. She was stunning. There was no other word for it. Tall and willowy, with silver blonde hair that cascaded down her back, and eyes like polished amber. Her dress was a masterpiece of white silk and silver embroidery, cut to emphasize every elegant line. She smiled, and it didn't reach her eyes. "So you're the mystery Omega," the woman said, her voice carrying across the suddenly silent hall. "How quaint." "Lady Morgana," Kenna said coolly, "you're blocking our path." "Am I?" Morgana's gaze never left Sarah. "I simply wanted to introduce myself to our king's new pet." The word landed like a slap. Sarah felt her face heat, but before she could respond, Kenna stepped forward. "That's your future queen you're addressing," Kenna said softly, dangerously. "I'd suggest adjusting your tone." "Future queen?" Morgana laughed, the sound like breaking glass. "The king hasn't announced anything, and even if he has taken some temporary interest in this foundling, I'm sure it will pass once he remembers what's at stake." She turned her devastating smile on Sarah. "No offense, dear. I'm sure you're perfectly adequate for whatever purpose he found you for." Something hot and sharp twisted in Sarah's gut. Her wolf, silent for so long, stirred. "That's enough," Thorn's voice cut through the hall like a blade. He was suddenly there, moving with that impossible alpha speed, placing himself between Sarah and Morgana. "You will apologize to my mate. Now." The hall erupted in whispers. Mate, he'd said it in front of everyone. Morgana's mask slipped for just a moment, showing something ugly beneath. But she recovered quickly, sinking into a perfect curtsy. "My apologies, my king. I meant no disrespect." "Didn't you?" Thorn's voice was soft, lethal. "Because it sounded very much like you just called my mate a pet and a foundling in front of the entire court. I merely... Leave. My king. Now, Morgana, before I forget that your family's service to this kingdom is the only thing keeping you here." Morgana's face went white, then red. She shot Sarah a look of pure venom before turning and gliding away, her supporters trailing behind her like a wake. Thorn turned to Sarah, his expression softening. "Are you all right?" "I'm fine," Sarah said automatically. She wasn't fine. Her wolf was awake and snarling, her heart was pounding, and every instinct she had was screaming at her to run. Can we get this over with?" Thorn studied her for a long moment, then nodded. He offered his arm. Sarah hesitated. She could feel hundreds of eyes on them, then took it. His warmth bled through the fabric of his sleeve. Her wolf pressed closer to the surface, drawn to him in a way that terrified her. Thorn led her to the dais and turned to address the assembled court. "Many of you have been asking questions about the woman I found during the blizzard. Let me answer them now. This is Sarah Ashwood. She is my true mate, she is under my protection, and anyone who harms her or speaks against her will answer to me personally." The declaration sent another wave of whispers through the crowd. Sarah felt like she might be sick. "The mate bond is sacred," Thorn continued. "It cannot be faked or forced. The moon herself chose Sarah for me, and I have accepted her gift. In time, when she is ready, she will be formally recognized as my queen and your Luna." "My king," an older alpha spoke up from the crowd. "With respect, the Omega bears fresh rejection marks. How do we know that she's not damaged goods?" Thorn's voice could have frozen the sun. "Is that what you were going to ask, Alpha Thornwood?" The older alpha had the grace to look ashamed. "I merely meant, you meant to question my mate's worth based on another man's failure." Thorn's eyes swept the room. "Let me be clear. Sarah was rejected by a coward who didn't deserve her. That rejection is his shame, not hers. Any wolf in this room who thinks otherwise is welcome to challenge me for the right to have an opinion." Silence. Even the rustling of clothes stopped. "I thought not," Thorn said. "Now, if there's other business, what about the lunar laws?" The voice came from near the back. An older woman in formal robes, one of the pack historians, Sarah guessed. She looked genuinely curious rather than malicious. Thorn went very still. "What about them?" "The ancient laws regarding lunar-born wolves. If the rumors are true—" "There are no rumors," Thorn interrupted. "Only court gossip. My king." The historian stepped forward. "I saw her blood myself when the healer was disposing of medical waste. The silver luminescence is unmistakable. The girl is lunar-born." The hall exploded. Sarah felt the blood drain from her face. She looked at Thorn, at Marin, at Kenna. They all knew. They'd all known. "The laws are clear," someone shouted. "Lunar Omegas must be bonded to the crown or executed," another voice finished. "They're too dangerous otherwise. She could destroy us all. She's already bewitched the king." The voices rose, overlapping, building into something close to panic. Sarah's wolf clawed at her insides, frightened and confused. What were they talking about? What was lunar-born? "Enough!" Thorn's alpha command crashed through the hall like thunder. Everyone fell silent. Necks baring automatically. "There will be no talk of execution. Sarah is my mate. She's under my protection. The lunar laws are ancient and outdated." "The laws exist for a reason," the historian said quietly. "The last lunar Omega nearly destroyed the kingdom. She drove her mate mad with power he couldn't control, and when he tried to reject her, she leveled 3 territories. Thousands died." Sarah couldn't breathe, couldn't think. This couldn't be real. That won't happen, Thorn said. How can you know? Morgana's voice rang out. She'd returned to the edge of the crowd, smelling blood in the water. How can any of us know she won't do the same? The smart thing, the safe thing, would be to kill me? Sarah heard herself say. Her voice sounded far away. Is that what you're suggesting? I'm suggesting we think of the greater good, Morgana said smoothly. One life against thousands. It's simple mathematics. The room was spinning. Sarah pulled away from Thorn, stumbling backward. I need to leave. Sarah! Thorn reached for her. Don't touch me. The words came out sharper than she intended. You knew. You all knew what I was, and you didn't tell me. You let me think I was just broken, that Marcus was right about me being defective, and all this time... Her voice broke. What am I? You're powerful, Thorn said. You're rare. You're dangerous, Sarah finished. I'm dangerous. That's what they're saying, isn't it? That I could hurt people, that I could hurt you. You would never. How do you know? Sarah was shaking now, her wolf thrashing inside her. I don't even know. I can't feel my wolf properly. I can't feel the mate bond. What if they're right? What if I'm too broken to control whatever this is? You're not broken, Thorn said fiercely. Stop! The word came out as a near scream. Sarah's emotions were a hurricane inside her. Fear, anger, betrayal, confusion. Her wolf was awake and raging, and something else was stirring too. Something deep and primal and wrong. The air around her began to shimmer. Sarah, Kenna said urgently, you need to calm down. I can't. The shimmer was spreading, darkness bleeding into reality. I can't. What's happening to me? Your power, Marin said, her voice tight with worry. You need to pull it back. I don't know how. The darkness coalesced, taking shape. Sarah felt it pulling from Thorn, from his mind, his memories, his deepest fears. She tried to stop it, but it was like trying to stop a river with her hands. A figure materialized in the center of the hall. He was tall and broad, with Thorn's features but crueler, harder. He wore the crown of the Alpha King, and his eyes held nothing but contempt. The resemblance was unmistakable. This was Thorn's father, the former king. The court gasped. Even Thorn went pale. Weak, the Shadow King said, his voice echoing unnaturally. I raised a weak son. A son who would throw away political alliances for a broken Omega. A son who would risk everything for sentiment. Father, Thorn whispered. The word held decades of pain. I'm not... Sarah tried to speak, tried to explain that this wasn't her, but the Shadow King was growing more solid, more real. You killed me, the Shadow continued, advancing on Thorn. Your own father. And for what? To become a better king? Look at you now, enchanted by an Omega, prepared to throw away everything I built. Stop it, Thorn said, but his voice shook. You're not real. I'm real enough. The Shadow reached out and Thorn flinched, actually flinched. I was right about you. You're weak. You've always been... Stop! Sarah screamed. The Shadow exploded into mist, dissipating like smoke. She collapsed, her legs giving out. Kenna caught her before she hit the ground. The hall was silent. Every eye was on her, and this time the looks weren't just curious or suspicious. They were terrified. Goddess above, someone whispered. She pulled it straight from his mind. The king's deepest shame manifested. She could destroy us all. Sarah looked up at Thorn. He stood frozen, his face a mask of shock and old pain. Their eyes met across the distance, and Sarah saw it. The fear. He was afraid of her. I'm sorry, she whispered. Then she pulled away from Kenna and ran. She heard Thorn calling after her, heard Kenna's shout, but she didn't stop. Couldn't stop. She ran through corridors she didn't know, downstairs she couldn't remember, until she burst out into the cold afternoon air. The palace grounds were massive. Beyond them, she could see the tree line of the northern forest. Freedom. Escape. If she could just reach it. Her legs carried her across the snow-covered grounds. Her wolf, awake now and screaming, pushed her faster. Behind her she heard pursuing footsteps, shouts. She didn't look back. The tree line was close, so close. Just a few more yards and she'd be in the forest. And then she could disappear, and everyone would be safe from whatever monster she was. Her wolf slammed against her consciousness like a physical blow. No, mate, can't leave, mate. Sarah tried to keep running, but her body wouldn't obey. Her wolf was fighting her, pulling against every instinct to flee. The conflict tore through her, and she stumbled, falling hard to her knees in the snow. She tried to stand. Her wolf wouldn't let her. "Please," she sobbed. "Please, I need to go. I need to—" Her vision went dark around the edges. Her wolf was stronger than she'd been in years, fed by proximity to their mate, and she was done being ignored. Sarah felt consciousness slipping, felt her wolf preparing to take over, to drag them back to Thorn whether she wanted it or not. The last thing she heard before darkness claimed her was the crunch of footsteps in snow, and Thorn's voice, rough with something that might have been fear or relief or both. I've got you, little wolf. You're safe." But she wasn't safe, and neither was anyone else. Not anymore. If you're still listening to this story up to this point, why don't you subscribe to this channel to continue getting impactful daily stories like this? We would be most grateful if you can do that to help boost this video to reach everyone. Thank you. Chapter 3. Sarah woke in Thorn's bed with no memory of how she got there. The room was dark except for firelight, and for a disorienting moment, she thought maybe the last few hours had been a nightmare. Then she felt the unfamiliar weight of her wolf's presence, awake, alert, and absolutely refusing to let her move more than a few inches from the center of the bed. "Mate will return. Stay." Her wolf's voice in her mind after years of silence should have been comforting. Instead, it made everything worse. Because now she couldn't even pretend she was imagining things. Couldn't pretend she was just a broken Omega who'd gotten caught up in something beyond her understanding. She was lunar-born, whatever that meant. And she'd pulled Thorn's worst memory out of his head and made it walk and talk in front of his entire court. Sarah pressed her hands against her eyes, but the image wouldn't leave. The shadow of Thorn's father, cruel and cutting. The way Thorn had flinched from a phantom. The fear in his eyes when he'd looked at her afterward. She'd hurt him. The one person who'd shown her kindness. And she'd weaponized his trauma in front of everyone he ruled. The door opened softly. Sarah tensed, but it was just Maren, carrying a tea tray and wearing an expression of careful neutrality. "You're awake," the healer said. "Good. How do you feel?" "Like a monster," Sarah said flatly. Maren set the tray down and poured 2 cups of tea with steady hands. "You're not a monster. You're an untrained lunar Omega who had a traumatic awakening. There's a difference. I hurt him. You manifested his fear, yes. It was uncontrolled and unfortunate." Maren handed her a cup. "It was also understandable given the circumstances. You'd just learned you're something you didn't know existed, heard people discuss executing you, and felt betrayed by everyone around you. Most wolves would have done worse. Most wolves can't pull nightmares out of people's heads." "No," Maren agreed quietly. "They can't. Which is why we need to talk about what happens next." Before Sarah could respond, the door opened again. This time it was Thorn, still in his formal clothes from court but looking exhausted. His eyes went to Sarah immediately, scanning her face with an intensity that made her want to hide. "You should be resting," he said. "So should you," Maren countered. "But here we both are." She stood, collecting her tray. "I'll leave you two to talk. Sarah, drink the tea. It'll help with the headache." After she left, silence stretched between them. Sarah couldn't look at Thorn directly, couldn't face whatever she might see in his expression. Disgust, fear, regret. "I'm sorry," she said finally. "I didn't mean to. I didn't know I could—" "I know." Thorn's voice was rough. He moved closer but stopped well short of the bed, as if he wasn't sure she wanted him near. "Sarah, look at me." She couldn't. "Please." The raw vulnerability in that single word made her lift her eyes. Thorn looked wrecked, exhausted and worried, and something else she couldn't name, but not afraid, not disgusted. "What you did," he said carefully, "was terrifying. For you, I imagine, more than anyone. But I'm not angry, I'm not afraid of you." "You flinched," Sarah whispered. I flinched because you managed to recreate my father down to the exact tone he used when he was disappointed in me. Which means you somehow reached into memories I've spent 20 years trying to forget." Thorn ran a hand through his hair. "It was invasive, uncomfortable. But Sarah, I've seen what real cruelty looks like. What you did wasn't cruelty. It was power you didn't know you had, triggered by fear and betrayal. Everyone in that hall thinks I'm dangerous." "You are dangerous," Thorn said simply. "So am I. So is every alpha in this kingdom. The question isn't whether you're dangerous, it's what you choose to do with that danger." Sarah's throat tightened. "I choose not to hurt anyone else." "Then that's what we'll work toward." Thorn finally closed the distance, sitting on the edge of the bed but not touching her. "But first, you need to understand what you are, what Lunar-born means." The historian said the last one destroyed 3 territories. The last one was bonded to a king who tried to use her power as a weapon and punish her when she refused. She was driven mad by abuse and isolation. Thorn's jaw tightened. "You're not her. You have a choice." "Do I?" Sarah pulled her knees to her chest. "The council wants me dead. I heard them. The council wants a lot of things they won't get." Something dark flashed in Thorn's eyes. "They're about to learn exactly what happens when they threaten my mate." The possessive edge in his voice made her wolf preen. Sarah tried to ignore it. "What does that mean?" "It means I'm handling it." "Thorn!" "You're exhausted. You need rest. We'll talk more in the morning." He stood, clearly intending to return to his couch. "Wait." Sarah didn't know what made her say it. "What you said in court, about me being your queen, did you mean it?" Thorn turned back to her, and the look in his eyes made her breath catch. "Every word." "Why?" "You don't even know me." "I know enough. I know you survived things that would have broken most wolves. I know you put yourself between me and danger without thinking twice. I know when you smile, which you haven't done yet, but I'm patient, it's going to be worth waiting for." He paused. "And I know the moon chose you for me. That's enough." After he left, Sarah lay in the dark, her wolf's presence a warm weight in her chest. For the first time in years, she didn't feel quite so alone. She just wished she could believe this would end well. The assassination attempt came 3 days later, during a formal dinner. Sarah had been avoiding court since the incident, but Thorn insisted she attend this one, a smaller gathering of key allies, meant to show unity. Kenna stayed close, and Thorn kept her within arm's reach the entire evening. She should have known that wouldn't be enough. The servers brought out the 3rd course, some kind of roasted game with herbs. Sarah was pushing food around her plate, not really eating, when Kenna suddenly knocked her wineglass out of her hand. The crystal shattered on the stone floor. Dark red wine spread like blood. "Don't drink anything," Kenna said sharply. She was already on her feet, hand on her blade. "Don't eat anything else." Thorn rose immediately, his alpha presence filling the room. "Explain." "The wine." Kenna's nose wrinkled. "Wolfsbane. A lot of it." Chaos erupted. Wolves surged to their feet, accusations flying. Thorn's guards surrounded the table while others blocked the exits. In the confusion, Sarah saw one of the servers, an older man in formal livery, bolt toward a side door. He didn't make it. Thorn moved with that impossible alpha speed, catching the man by the throat and slamming him against the wall hard enough to crack stone. "Who sent you?" Thorn's voice was barely human. The server's eyes rolled with panic, but he shook his head. Blood trickled from his mouth. He'd bitten his tongue on impact. "I'll ask once more." Thorn's claws extended, pressing against the man's throat. Who sent you? The council, the man gasped. High Council. Said she was dangerous. Said you were compromised. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Sarah watched, frozen, as Thorn's eyes bled to alpha gold. His wolf was right at the surface, barely contained. Which council members? I can't. Thorn's claws drew blood. Names. The server gave 3 names, 3 high-ranking council members, all from old families, all with significant political power. Kenna, Thorn said, his voice deadly calm. Take Sarah to my chambers, lock the doors, let no one in except Marin or me. Thorn, Sarah started. What are you— Now, Kenna. The beta female didn't argue. She grabbed Sarah's arm and pulled her toward the exit. Behind them, Sarah heard Thorn giving orders in a voice that promised violence. He's going to kill them, Sarah said, as Kenna hustled her through the corridors. The council members. He's going to execute them. Probably, Kenna agreed. They tried to murder his mate. What did they think would happen? This will start a war. Maybe, but he can't let it stand. Show weakness now, and every enemy he has will think you're a viable target. Kenna's grip on her arm was firm, but not painful. Welcome to the reality of being queen. Sometimes people die to keep you alive. Sarah's stomach turned. I didn't ask for this. None of us asked for any of this. But here we are. Back in Thorn's chambers, Kenna checked every window, every entrance, every shadow that could hide a threat. Satisfied they were secure, she finally let herself relax slightly. I need you to listen carefully, Kenna said. What happens next is going to be ugly. Politically, violently, all of it. The packs whose council members die tonight will demand justice. Others will see opportunity in the chaos. Things are going to get worse before they get better. Maybe I should just leave, Sarah said quietly. If I'm gone, none of this matters. You really think that? Kenna's laugh was sharp. Sarah, if you leave now, Thorn will burn the world looking for you, and every enemy he's made will know exactly how to hurt him. Through you. You're safer here, even with assassination attempts, than you'd be anywhere else. I don't want people to die because of me. Then get stronger, fast. Kenna pulled out a chair and sat. Starting tomorrow, we begin training, real training. Your wolf is awake now. We need to make sure you can control her. And we need to figure out what your lunar abilities can actually do. Sarah shuddered, remembering the Shadow King. I don't want to use them. Want doesn't matter. You have them. Either you learn to control them or they control you. Kenna's expression softened slightly. I know you're scared, but fear without preparation is just weakness waiting to be exploited. Hours later, Thorn returned. Sarah knew immediately it was bad. He was covered in blood, not his own, she didn't think, and his eyes were still more wolf than man. He looked at her for a long moment, then disappeared into the bathing chamber. She heard water running for a long time. When he emerged, clean and dressed in simple clothes, he looked older somehow, tired in a way that went beyond physical exhaustion. 3 council members are dead, he said without preamble. I executed them myself for treason. 2 more are imprisoned pending investigation. He poured himself a drink with steady hands. 5 packs have threatened to withdraw from the kingdom in protest. 2 more are considering it. Sarah felt sick. Because of me. Because of them. They made their choice when they tried to murder you. Thorn drained the glass. But yes, this is about you. About what you are. About what people fear you could become. What if they're right to fear me? They are, Thorn said simply. Just like they're right to fear me. Power is always frightening, but fear isn't an excuse for murder. He crossed to her, and this time he did touch her. Just his hand cupping her face, his thumb brushing her cheekbone. The contact sent warmth through her entire body. Her wolf surged toward him, desperate to close the distance. I'm going to complete the mate bond, Thorn said. Publicly, in 1 week. Sarah jerked back. What? A public bonding ceremony, full formal rites. Once we're bonded, you'll be untouchable as the Alpha Queen. Anyone who moves against you will be moving against the throne itself. Thorn, I still can't feel the bond. What if it doesn't work? What if I can't? We'll make it work. His certainty was almost frightening. Kenna will help you prepare, so will Marin. 1 week, Sarah. Then you'll be mine in a way no one can dispute. After he fell asleep, finally, fitfully, Sarah lay awake, her mind racing. A public bonding ceremony, in front of everyone who already thought she was dangerous or weak or both. What if it failed? What if her broken bond meant she couldn't complete the ritual? The humiliation would destroy any chance Thorn had of keeping his kingdom stable. Won't fail, her wolf insisted. Mate is ours. Bond is real. But Sarah couldn't feel it, and she had no idea how to fix that in a week. The next 6 days were brutal. Kenna put her through training that would have killed her a month ago. Running until her lungs burned, fighting until her muscles screamed, shifting until her wolf learned to respond instantly to her commands. In between, Marin worked with her on meditation techniques meant to help her access her lunar abilities without losing control. It wasn't enough. Sarah could feel her power now, a cold, waiting thing deep in her chest. But she couldn't direct it, couldn't use it intentionally. It responded to emotion, to fear and anger, which made it a weapon she couldn't trust. You're trying too hard, Marin said on the 4th day. Lunar power isn't about force. It's about connection, about reaching into the emotional truth of a situation and reflecting it. I don't want to reflect anyone's truth, Sarah said tiredly. I don't want to hurt anyone else. Then learn to reflect something other than fear. That night, unable to sleep, Sarah found herself in the palace library. It was massive and mostly empty this late, just a few scholars working at distant tables. She wandered the stacks until she found the history section, looking for anything about lunar wolves. What she found made her blood run cold. The last recorded lunar omega, 300 years ago, had indeed destroyed 3 territories. But the accounts suggested she hadn't done it intentionally. Her mate, a cruel king, had broken her so thoroughly that her power had lashed out in self-defense. She'd killed thousands, including her own mate, before dying herself. The accounts that followed were worse. Laws enacted specifically to deal with lunar-born wolves, requirements that they be bonded to the crown or executed, restrictions on their movement, their rights, their very existence. She was reading about the execution methods when she felt Thorn's presence behind her. You shouldn't be reading that, he said quietly. Why? Because it's all true? Sarah closed the book. They're right to want me dead, Thorn. Everyone I could hurt is documented right here. Thorn took the book from her hands and set it aside. Those laws were written by people who were afraid. Fear makes terrible policy. It also keeps people alive. So does trust. He pulled out a chair and sat. Talk to me. What's really bothering you? Everything. Nothing. How could she explain the constant fear that she'd lose control again? That she'd hurt him, hurt someone, destroy everything he'd built? I still can't feel the bond, she admitted. Kenna says my wolf knows you're our mate. Marin says the connection is there. But I don't feel it. What if the ceremony fails because I'm too broken? You're not broken. Marcus said. Marcus was a liar and an abuser. Thorn's voice hardened. Whatever he told you about yourself was designed to keep you weak and compliant. None of it was true. Sarah wanted to believe that. God, she wanted to believe it. But 2 years of conditioning didn't disappear in a week. Tell me about him, Thorn said. Tell me what he did to you. Why? Because you're carrying his poison around, and it's killing any chance you have of healing. Talk to me, Sarah. Let me help carry it. So she did. Haltingly at first, then faster as the words started flowing. She told him about the first year, when Marcus had seemed perfect. about how slowly the criticism had started, the isolation, the punishments for infractions she didn't understand. About being locked in the basement for days, about the beatings that never left marks where anyone could see, about being told she was worthless, defective, wrong in every possible way. "He said Omegas were supposed to be quiet and obedient," Sarah whispered, "that I was too opinionated, too emotional, too much of everything bad and not enough of anything good." Thorne's hands were clenched so tight his knuckles had gone white. "If he wasn't already on my list, he would be now." "Don't." Sarah put her hand over his. The contact made her wolf surge with approval. "He's not worth it." "He hurt you." "Yes, but killing him won't undo that." She took a shaky breath. "Kenna's been helping me remember things, from before Marcus, and I think my birth pack knew what I was." Thorne went very still. "What?" "I was 16 when they sold me to Rivercrest, to Marcus specifically. My parents told me it was an honor, that Beta Marcus had chosen me personally." Her voice cracked. "But Kenna helped me remember the night before I left. I heard my father talking to the Pack Alpha. He said something about the problem being handled before she manifests. They sold me to someone they thought would break me. They knew." The temperature in the room dropped. Thorne's eyes had gone gold again, his wolf right at the surface. "What pack?" he asked, his voice barely human. "It doesn't matter." "What pack, Sarah?" "Moonhaven, in the Eastern Territories." Thorne stood abruptly. "They're here, at the summit. I've seen their delegation." "Thorne, please, they sold you to be broken, to be abused. Because they were afraid of what you might become." His voice was cold, lethal. "That's not something I can ignore. I don't want more blood spilled because of me. This isn't because of you, it's because of them, because they failed you in every possible way." He cupped her face in both hands. "You deserved better, Sarah. You deserved family who protected you, a mate who cherished you, a pack that valued you. Instead, you got people who were afraid of your potential." Sarah's eyes burned. "I don't know how to be what you think I am." "Then learn. You have time. You have me. You have Kenna and Marin and every wolf in this kingdom who has sworn loyalty to the crown." His thumbs brushed away tears she hadn't realized were falling. "You're not alone anymore. You're not that frightened 16-year-old or that broken Omega in the snow. You're my mate, my queen, and I will burn the world before I let anyone hurt you again." The fierce devotion in his voice made her wolf howl with approval. And for just a moment, just a heartbeat, Sarah felt something. A warmth in her chest that wasn't her wolf. A connection that felt bigger than both of them. Then it was gone, so fast she wondered if she'd imagined it. But Thorne's expression suggested he'd felt it too. "It's there," he said softly. "The bond. You just need to trust it." "I don't know how to trust anymore." "Then trust me to be patient while you learn." The night before the ceremony, Sarah was reviewing the ritual steps with Marin for the 100th time when a guard knocked urgently at the door. "My king," the guard said, "there's a situation in the Great Hall. A diplomatic delegation has arrived under a formal flag." Thorne's expression darkened. "Who?" "Rivercrest Pack, my king. And they're demanding an audience, now." The world tilted slightly. Sarah's wolf snarled, recognizing the threat. "Marcus," she whispered. "Stay here," Thorne commanded. "No." Sarah stood on shaking legs. "If he's here, I need to face him. Sarah, I need to do this." She was terrified, but she was also done running, done hiding. "Please." Thorne studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "Kenna stays with you, and if he so much as looks at you wrong, I'm removing his head." The Great Hall felt like walking into a nightmare. Marcus stood in the center with his alpha, Richard of Rivercrest, and 2 other pack members. He looked exactly as she remembered, handsome in a cold way, with cruel eyes and a smile that had once made her feel special. Now it just made her feel sick. Alpha King, Richard said formally. Thank you for seeing us. This better be important, Thorne said coldly. You're interrupting preparations for a royal ceremony. About that. Marcus stepped forward, his gaze finally landing on Sarah. His expression was carefully neutral, but she saw the flash of satisfaction in his eyes. I'm afraid there's been a terrible misunderstanding. Sarah, my mate, she must have been confused when she told you she was free to bond. But she's not. Sarah's wolf bristled. I'm not your mate. You rejected me. Did I? Marcus pulled a rolled parchment from his jacket. Because according to this witnessed and legally binding bonding contract, signed by both of us 2 years ago, we are legally mated. The rejection you're referring to never happened, or if it did, it was the result of a lover's quarrel. I never meant it formally. The paper landed on the floor between them like a bomb. Thorne picked it up, his expression unreadable as he scanned the document. When he looked up, his eyes were murderous. This contract is dated 3 months after Sarah arrived at Rivercrest. She would have been 16. Old enough to consent in our territory, Richard said smoothly. The witnesses include your pack healer and your beta. Thorne's voice was dangerously soft. Both wolves who you control completely. The contract is legitimate, Marcus insisted, which means Sarah is my legal mate. Your Majesty has violated sacred mate law by interfering. Return her to me, and we can pretend this unfortunate incident never happened. Sarah couldn't breathe. She stared at the parchment, at what looked like her signature at the bottom. She didn't remember signing anything. But there had been so many documents in those early days, and Marcus had drugged her tea so often. Sarah, Thorne said quietly, do you remember signing this? I don't know. Maybe. There were things he made me sign. Papers. I never read them. He said it was pack business. She signed it, Marcus said firmly. Whether she remembers or not is irrelevant. The law is clear. She's mine. And by keeping her here, you're in violation of mate law. Return her, or we go to war. The silence that followed was absolute. Sarah looked at Thorne and saw him calculating, saw him weighing the cost of war against the cost of giving her up. Saw the moment he made his decision. No, Thorne said simply. My king, Richard started. The contract is fraudulent. Anyone can see that. Witnessed by your own pack members, signed by a drugged and isolated 16-year-old who had no idea what she was agreeing to. Thorne stepped forward, and his alpha presence filled the hall. But even if it were legitimate, even if every word of it was true, the answer would still be no. Sarah is my true mate. The moon chose her for me, and I have claimed her. Your piece of paper means nothing against that. The law? I am the law, Thorne said flatly, and I say the contract is void. Sarah stays with me. Marcus's mask slipped, showing the cruel man underneath. Then you declare war on Rivercrest, and on every pack that honors mate law. Is one broken Omega really worth that? Your Majesty? Thorne moved so fast Sarah barely saw it. One moment Marcus was standing. The next, Thorne had him by the throat, lifted off the ground. Call her broken again, Thorne said softly, and I'll rip your spine out through your mouth. My king, Richard shouted. He's under diplomatic protection. Then he should act like it. Thorne dropped Marcus, who collapsed, gasping. Get out, all of you. And know this, if you come after my mate again, diplomatic immunity won't save you. Nothing will save you. After they left, Sarah stood frozen in the center of the hall. Around her, witnesses whispered. The damage was done. Marcus had planted doubt, and tomorrow's ceremony would now carry even more weight. If it failed, if Sarah couldn't complete the bond, everyone would believe Marcus's story, would believe she was his mate, that Thorne had stolen her, that everything since was built on lies. She had less than 12 hours to figure out how to feel something she'd spent 2 years learning to suppress, and the entire kingdom would be watching. If you're still listening to this story up to this point, why don't you subscribe to this channel to continue getting impactful daily stories like this? We would be most grateful if you can do that to help boost this video to reach everyone. Thank you. Chapter 4. The chaos started before dawn. Sarah had been awake most of the night, staring at the ceiling while Thorn slept fitfully on his couch. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw that contract with her signature, or something close enough to pass, saw Marcus's satisfied smile, heard his voice claiming she was his. Her wolf snarled at the memory. Fully awake now and furious. Not his, never his, ours. Mate is ours. The conviction in her wolf's voice was absolute. Sarah just wished she could feel the same certainty. A sharp knock interrupted her spiraling thoughts. Kenna entered without waiting for permission, her face grim. The council has called an emergency session. Marcus is demanding a formal hearing. She looked at Thorn, who was already sitting up, instantly alert. They're invoking the ancient accords. Mate law supersedes even royal authority. Thorn's expression went cold. When? 1 hour. The full court will be present. Kenna's gaze shifted to Sarah. Including representatives from every pack at the summit. This is going to be ugly. Sarah's stomach dropped. Can he actually do this? Can he force me to go back? If the contract is legitimate and witnessed, and if he never formally rejected you... Kenna's pause said everything. Yes, mate law is sacred. Even the Alpha King can't simply steal another wolf's mate without consequences. But he did reject me, Sarah insisted. I have the marks, which have healed enough that they could be argued as self-inflicted or from a failed bond attempt. Thorn's voice was rough. He stood, running a hand through his hair. Marcus is clever. He's created just enough doubt to force a hearing, and now the entire kingdom will be watching to see if I'm a mate stealer or if he's a liar. What happens if they rule in his favor? The silence that followed was answer enough. Then we prove he's lying, Sarah said, her voice steadier than she felt. There has to be a way. In mate law hearings, the burden of proof falls on the accused, me. Thorn's jaw clenched. I have to prove Marcus is lying, not the other way around. And unless you remember signing that contract or can provide witnesses to contradict his story, I can't. Sarah's hands shook. I don't remember. There are whole months from that first year that are just blank. The tea he gave me, the isolation. It's all fragments. Kenna swore under her breath. This is exactly what Marcus wanted. Plant doubt, force a hearing, make Thorn look like a tyrant who steals mates. Even if we win, the political damage will be catastrophic. Then I need to remember, Sarah said desperately. There has to be something, some proof that he's lying. Maren arrived minutes later with a bitter-smelling tea. This will help sharpen your memories. But Sarah, forcing memories that were suppressed through trauma and drugs is dangerous. You could break something that can't be fixed. More dangerous than being handed back to Marcus? The healer's expression softened. No, I suppose not. She handed over the cup. Drink it all. It'll take about 30 minutes to work. The tea tasted like ash and copper. Sarah forced it down, ignoring the way her stomach rebelled. Around her, Thorn and Kenna discussed strategy in low voices, while Maren prepared her examination equipment. Everything felt surreal, like watching someone else's nightmare. Sarah. Thorn crouched in front of her, his presence grounding. Whatever happens in that hearing, you are not going back to him. I don't care what laws I have to break or what wars I have to fight. You understand me? You can't start a war over 1 Omega. I can, and I will. His hand cupped her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone. You're not just any Omega. You're mine, and I protect what's mine. The fierceness in his voice made her wolf keen with approval. That phantom warmth flickered in her chest again, the bond, trying to surface through years of damage. Then the tea hit her bloodstream, and memories came flooding back. The great hall was packed. Every alpha from the summit stood in formal attendance, their packs arranged behind them. The High Council, what was left of it after Thorn's executions, occupied their traditional places. And in the center, looking entirely too confident, stood Marcus with Alpha Richard, and a third man Sarah didn't recognize. "That's Cassius," Kenna murmured as they entered. "Rivercrest's head legal advisor. They're not taking any chances." Sarah barely heard her. The memories Marin's tea had unlocked were still swirling, fragments clicking into place. She remembered signing papers, so many papers, while Marcus stood over her, telling her they were pack registrations, household agreements, nothing important. Remembered the fog in her mind, the way her hand had felt disconnected from her body. Remembered Marcus's voice, soothing and poisonous. "Just sign here, love. Trust me." She had trusted him. For months, she'd trusted him while he systematically destroyed her. "The hearing will now commence," High Counselor Aldrich announced. He was one of the surviving council members, elderly and traditional. "We are here to address the formal complaint brought by Beta Marcus Thornwood of Rivercrest Pack against Alpha King Thorn Blackridge regarding the alleged unlawful taking of a bonded mate." "There's nothing alleged about it," Marcus said smoothly. "I have a legally binding contract, properly witnessed, proving Sarah Ashwood is my mate. The king has violated sacred mate law by claiming her." "The contract is fraudulent," Thorn said flatly, "obtained through coercion and drugs from a minor who had no advocate or family present." "Can you prove that?" Cassius stepped forward, every inch the seasoned lawyer. "Or are we simply taking your word against witness documentation?" "I can prove it," Sarah heard herself say. Every eye in the hall turned to her. "I remember now." Marcus's confidence flickered for just a moment. "Sarah, love, you were always confused. Don't." The word came out hard. "Don't call me that. Don't call me anything." She stepped forward, Kenna a reassuring presence at her back. "I remember the tea you gave me. Every morning, every night. You said it would help with my anxiety, that new mates needed it to adjust. Many Omegas take calming herbs." "It wasn't calming herbs. It was something stronger, something that made everything fuzzy, made me compliant." The memories were clearer now, sharp and cutting. "The papers you had me sign, I asked what they were. You said pack registrations, household accounts. You never once mentioned a mating contract." "You signed willingly," Marcus insisted, but his voice had lost some of its smoothness. "Multiple witnesses can attest." "Your pack healer who answered only to you? Your beta who was your second cousin?" Sarah's hands clenched. "Those aren't neutral witnesses. They're wolves you controlled completely." "This is ridiculous," Alpha Richard interjected. "My beta's integrity is beyond question." "Is it?" Thorn's voice cut through the hall. "Because I've had my investigators looking into Marcus's activities over the past 2 years. Would you like to know what they found?" The temperature in the room shifted. Marcus's face had gone carefully blank. "They found regular payments from an unknown source. Large payments, deposited monthly to an account Marcus thought was hidden." Thorn gestured, and one of his advisors came forward with documents. "They found coded correspondence discussing the asset and containment protocols. And they found this." He held up a vial of dark liquid. "This was found in Marcus's quarters. It's a mixture of wolfsbane, silver trace, and something else. Something specifically designed to suppress a wolf's abilities while keeping them conscious and compliant." Thorn's eyes were cold. "This is what you gave her, wasn't it, Marcus? This is how you kept her broken." "That proves nothing," Cassius said quickly. "Many packs keep such mixtures for medical purposes. Not in quantities sufficient to dose someone daily for 2 years." Marin stepped forward, her healer's authority unmistakable. "I've analyzed the residue in Sarah's system. This compound is highly illegal and specifically formulated to suppress certain genetic markers. Lunar markers, to be precise." The hall erupted in whispers. Marcus's face had gone white. "You knew what she was," Thorn said softly. "Dangerously." You knew from the beginning. That's why you took her. That's why you spent 2 years breaking her, to make sure she never manifested. This is speculation, Richard said, but he was looking at Marcus with new wariness. You can't prove. I can prove he tried to kill her, Thorne interrupted. I have witnesses who saw him dump her in the blizzard, who heard him say she was defective and better off dead. That's not how you treat a mate you value. She was unstable, Marcus said desperately. I had to what? Sarah's voice cracked like a whip. Something was building inside her, that cold power stirring. Had to beat me? Had to lock me in the dark for days? Had to tell me I was worthless until I believed it? Her wolf was rising, and with it, her lunar abilities. Tell them the truth, Marcus. Tell them why you really took me. Sarah, Maren warned, control it. But Sarah was done controlling, done holding back. The power inside her unfurled like wings, and suddenly she could feel Marcus's emotions like they were her own. Fear, guilt, and underneath it all, a seething ambition that had nothing to do with her and everything to do with power. Tell them, she said again, and this time her voice echoed with something otherworldly. The air around her shimmered. Tell them who's really behind this. Marcus tried to resist. She felt him fighting, felt his will pushing against hers. But her lunar power was awake now, and it wanted the truth the way a wolf wanted blood. I was paid, Marcus gasped, the words tearing out of him. Paid to take her, to break her, to make sure she never manifested. By whom? Thorne demanded. I can't. Marcus fell to his knees, fighting the compulsion. He'll kill me. Sarah pushed harder. The power flowing through her was intoxicating and terrifying in equal measure. Who paid you? Prince Darius. The name exploded from Marcus like a confession. Darius Blackridge. He's alive. He hired me to break the lunar Omega before she could bond with you. He wanted her as a weapon. The hall descended into absolute chaos. Wolves shouted, council members argued, and over it all, Thorne stood frozen with an expression of pure shock. Darius is dead, someone shouted. The prince died in the rebellion. He's alive, Marcus continued, the words spilling out under Sarah's compulsion. He's been in hiding, building alliances, waiting for the right moment to strike. He knew about Sarah's bloodline before anyone. Paid her birth pack to sell her to me. I was supposed to keep her broken, then deliver her when she manifested. She'd be the perfect weapon, powerful but psychologically destroyed, easy to control. Sarah, stop! Maren's voice was urgent. You're burning too much power. But Sarah couldn't stop. The revelation that her entire nightmare had been orchestrated, that even her birth pack had sold her to be broken, it was too much. The power inside her swelled, feeding on her anguish and rage. The shadows in the hall began to move. Sarah, Thorne said, his alpha command cutting through her fury. Let him go. You've proven your point. She wanted to. God, she wanted to. But the power had taken on a life of its own, and Marcus's fear was like fuel to a fire. Around her, the shadows coalesced into something solid, a creature born from nightmare. All teeth and claws and hunger. Someone screamed. Everyone out! Kenna shouted. Now! The court fled in panic as the shadow creature grew, fed by Sarah's loss of control. She tried to pull it back, but it was too late. The thing lunged toward the nearest wolf, Kenna. The beta female didn't run. She stood her ground, blade drawn, facing down the manifestation of Sarah's power. Sarah, focus on my voice. This isn't real. It's just power without direction. But the creature was real enough. Its claws raked across Kenna's armor, and the beta went down with a cry of pain. No! Sarah's horror broke through the power haze. The creature dissipated instantly, but the damage was done. Kenna lay bleeding, and Sarah had done it. She'd nearly killed the one person who'd been trying to help her. Maren rushed to Kenna's side while Thorne caught Sarah as her legs gave out. The power drain was catastrophic. She felt hollowed out, empty, wrong. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm sorry, I didn't mean... I know. Thorn's arms were iron around her. I know, little wolf. I'm a monster. They're all right. I'm too dangerous. You're untrained. There's a difference. Kenna, we'll be fine, Maren called out. The armor took most of it. She's already healing. But Sarah had seen the blood, had felt her power trying to kill someone who'd only ever protected her. You need to reject me, she said into Thorn's chest, before I hurt someone else, before I become exactly what everyone fears. No. Thorn, no. He pulled back enough to look at her face. This is exactly what Darius wanted. For you to be so afraid of your own power that you'd never use it. For you to believe you're a monster so thoroughly that you'd run from the one person who could help you master it. I almost killed Kenna. And you stopped yourself. That's what matters. He cupped her face, forcing her to meet his eyes. You're not a monster, Sarah. You're powerful and frightened and untrained, all of which can be fixed. I don't want this power. I don't want any of it. I know, but you have it anyway. His thumb brushed her cheekbone. The question is, what are you going to do with it? Around them, the hall was empty except for Maren tending to Kenna, and a handful of guards keeping watch. Marcus had been taken into custody. The court had fled. Everything was falling apart. The ceremony, Sarah said numbly. It's supposed to be tonight. We'll postpone. No. She straightened, pulling away from his warmth. We can't. Not after this. Everyone needs to see that I'm not a threat, that I can control this. If we postpone, they'll think I'm too dangerous to bond with. You are too dangerous to bond with, Thorn said bluntly, but not for the reasons they think. Something in his voice made her pause. What does that mean? Thorn looked at Maren and Kenna. Leave us. My king, Maren started. Please. The two women left, Kenna leaning heavily on Maren but walking under her own power. Once they were alone, Thorn moved to the center of the hall, his back to Sarah. I've been dying for the last 3 years, he said quietly. Sarah's world tilted. What? My father. Before I killed him, he cursed me, used ancient magic, the kind that requires blood sacrifice and dark rituals. Thorn's hands clenched. He said if I wanted the throne so badly, I could watch as it killed me slowly. The curse is eating my wolf from the inside out. That's not possible. Sarah stared at him. You're the strongest alpha I've ever seen. Now, yes. But it's getting worse. In another year, maybe 2, my wolf will be completely consumed. I'll lose my alpha abilities, my strength, everything that makes me who I am. He finally turned to face her. And then I'll die. The confession hit her like a physical blow. Why didn't you tell anyone? Because the moment word gets out that the Alpha King is dying, every enemy I've made will strike. The kingdom will tear itself apart. His expression was bleak. I've been searching for 3 years for a cure. Tried every healer, every ritual, every desperate measure. Nothing worked. Until I found you. Understanding crashed over her. Lunar Omega abilities. Can heal curses that would kill any other wolf. Can amplify an alpha's power, or in my case, replace what the curse is destroying. Thorn took a step toward her. I need you, Sarah, not just as a mate. I need your power to survive. The revelation should have made her angry, should have felt like another betrayal, another person using her for what she could provide. But looking at Thorn, at this powerful, lonely king who'd admitted his greatest weakness, she just felt sad. So, when you found me in the snow, she said slowly, when you claimed me as your mate, I felt the mate bond. That part was real. The moon chose you for me, and my wolf recognized you instantly. His jaw tightened. But yes, when Maren discovered you were lunar-born, I realized you were also my only chance at survival. I should have told you sooner. He broke off, running a hand through his hair. I wanted you to choose me because you wanted to, not because you felt obligated to save me. And now? Now you know the truth. I'm not just offering you a mate bond and a crown. I'm asking you to save my life. Thorn's eyes met hers. But I'm also offering you something no other alpha has offered their Omega mate in centuries. A choice. Not the traditional bond where you submit to my authority. An equal partnership. A sharing of power. I don't understand. The traditional mate bond is hierarchical. The alpha leads, the Omega follows. Your power would amplify mine, but you'd be bound to my will. He took another step closer. I'm offering something different. A balanced bond. My strength shared with you, your power shared with me. We lead together, fight together, survive together, as equals. That's not how mate bonds work. It is for lunar Omegas and their mates. If both parties agree, if both parties choose it freely. His voice dropped. I'm not asking you to submit to me, Sarah. I'm asking you to stand with me, to help me save this kingdom and myself, to trust that I want you, not just what you can give me. Sarah's mind reeled. Everything she'd been taught about mate bonds, about Omega roles, about submission and hierarchy, he was offering to throw it all away. Why would you do that? Why give up that kind of control? Because I watched my father rule through fear and dominance, and it nearly destroyed everything. Because I've spent 3 years dying alone, and I'm tired of pretending I don't need anyone. Thorn's expression softened. And because you deserve a choice. After everything that's been taken from you, you deserve to choose your own fate. Even if I choose to leave? Even then. The words clearly cost him. Though I really hope you don't. The phantom warmth in Sarah's chest flared stronger. Her wolf was practically howling with approval, pushing against her consciousness, desperate to accept. Mate offers strength, offers partnership, offers everything. Say yes, say yes, say yes. But Sarah had learned the hard way that pretty words could hide cruel intentions. That promises could shatter. That trust was the most dangerous thing she could give. I need time, she said finally, to think, to process all of this. Thorn nodded, though disappointment flickered across his face. The ceremony is in 8 hours. Whatever you decide, I'll accept it. And if I say no, if I can't do this, then I die, and you find somewhere safe to live out your life far from all this chaos. He said it matter-of-factly, like his death was just another political complication. But the offer stands regardless. Equal partners or nothing. After he left, Sarah stood alone in the great hall, staring at the spot where her shadow creature had nearly killed Kenna. The scorch marks on the stone floor were evidence of how dangerous she could be, how much damage she could do if she lost control. But they were also proof that she'd stopped herself, that she had some measure of control, even in her fear. Mate needs us, her wolf insisted. We need mate. Bond will make us stronger. Together. Maybe. Or maybe bonding with Thorn would be the final push that turned her into the weapon everyone feared. Maybe sharing power with a dying Alpha King would destroy them both. The sun was rising outside the tall windows, painting the hall in shades of gold and red. In 8 hours, the entire court would gather for a ceremony that would either save them all or doom them completely. Sarah just had to decide if she was brave enough to find out which. She found Kenna in the healer's wing, bandaged but sitting up and arguing with Marin about being released early. I'm fine, Kenna insisted. It barely grazed me. It gouged through military-grade armor and left claw marks in your ribs, Marin countered. You're staying here until... Oh. She spotted Sarah in the doorway. I'll give you 2 privacy. After Marin left, uncomfortable silence filled the room. Sarah couldn't make herself cross the threshold, couldn't face the woman she'd nearly killed. If you're here to apologize again, don't, Kenna said. I've been hit by worse. I could have killed you. But you didn't. You pulled it back. Kenna shifted, wincing slightly. That's what matters. Most wolves with new powers can't stop once they start. You could. Barely. barely is still something. Kenna gestured to a chair. Stop hovering in the doorway like a ghost and sit down. Sarah reluctantly entered, perching on the edge of the indicated chair. Thorn told me everything, about the curse, about needing my power to survive. I figured he might. Kenna's expression was neutral. How do you feel about that? I don't know. Used, maybe? Or like everything was a lie? Was it? Kenna asked. The mate bond is real. You felt it earlier. His need for you is real. The question is whether you can separate genuine need from manipulation. With my history, that's not exactly easy. No, it's not. Kenna leaned back carefully. But here's what I know about Thorn. I've served him for 15 years. I've seen him at his best and his absolute worst, and I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you, not with hunger or calculation, but with hope. Hope that I'll save him. Hope that he finally found someone who sees him as more than a king or a weapon. Kenna's gaze was steady. You think he's using you for your power, but Sarah, he's offering you something no Alpha King has offered in centuries. Real, genuine equality. That's not manipulation. That's desperation of a different kind. What if I'm not strong enough? What if I bond with him and lose control and hurt him? What if you don't bond with him and spend the rest of your life wondering what might have been? Kenna countered. There's risk either way. The question is which risk you can live with. Sarah sat with that for a long moment. Outside, she could hear the palace coming alive, preparations beginning for the ceremony. In a few hours, she'd stand before the entire court and make a choice that would define the rest of her life. He said the bond would be equal, she said quietly. That we'd share power instead of me submitting to him. He meant it. I've seen the ritual texts he's been studying. It's ancient, complicated, and dangerous as hell, but it would give you just as much authority as him. Make you a true Alpha Queen, not just a figurehead. I don't want authority. I don't want any of this. I know, Kenna's voice softened, but you have it anyway. So the question becomes, what are you going to do with it? It was the same question Thorn had asked. The same question that had been haunting her since that first night in his bed. What was she going to do with the power she never asked for? Run from it? Hide from it? Or learn to wield it before someone else did? The ceremony, Sarah said finally. If I agree to it, if I bond with him, will you be there? Try to stop me. Kenna's smile was fierce. Someone needs to make sure you don't bolt at the last second. I might anyway. Then I'll chase you down and drag you back. The beta's expression turned serious. You deserve this, Sarah. You deserve a mate who sees your worth, a home where you're valued, a future that's yours to choose. Don't let fear steal that from you. After leaving Kenna, Sarah walked the palace halls in a daze. Servants rushed past her, carrying flowers and fabric and wine for the ceremony. No one questioned her presence. She was the future queen, after all, whether she wanted the title or not. She found herself in front of Thorn's private study. The door was cracked open, and through it she could hear voices. Told her everything? That was Marin. Yes. Thorn's voice was tired. She deserves the truth. And if she refuses? If she walks away? A long pause. Then I die with a clear conscience, knowing I gave her the choice I never had. Romantic fool, Marin said, but there was affection in it. You know she'll probably say yes anyway. That girl is stronger than she knows. I hope so, because if she doesn't, this kingdom tears itself apart within the year. Darius will make his move the moment he hears I'm weakening. We'll handle Darius. Not without Sarah's power, we won't. Thorn's voice dropped. He's been planning this for years, Marin, building alliances, stockpiling weapons, turning wolves against me. He knew about the curse, probably helped Father cast it. Everything he's done with Sarah, with Marcus, it's all been leading to this. Sarah's hand tightened on the doorframe. She'd known Marcus's betrayal was orchestrated, but hearing the full scope of it, Years of planning, of manipulation, all centered around breaking her, made her physically ill. "Then we stop him," Marin said firmly, "with or without the ceremony, with or without Sarah's powers. We stop him. I can't ask her to fight my battles." "You're not asking. You're giving her the choice to fight beside you. There's a difference." Sarah pulled away from the door before they could sense her presence. Her mind was spinning with everything she'd learned, everything she'd heard. Thorn wasn't just offering her a bond. He was offering her a war. A chance to stand against the people who'd tried to break her, to prove that she was more than a weapon or a victim. She could run. She could reject the bond, leave the palace, disappear into some remote territory where no one knew her name or her bloodline. Or she could stay. Could bond with a dying king, master powers she didn't understand, and fight against enemies who'd spent years planning her destruction. Both options terrified her, but only one felt like choosing herself. The sun was setting by the time Sarah made her way back to Thorn's chambers. Servants had laid out a ceremonial gown, white silk and silver embroidery, beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. The bonding ceremony would begin in less than an hour. Thorn was already dressed in formal black and silver, and when he saw her, something vulnerable crossed his face. "You came back," he said softly. "I did." Sarah stood in the doorway, this threshold she'd crossed so many times. "I have questions. Ask them. If we do this, if we bond as equals, what happens if I lose control again? What happens if my power hurts you? Then we figure it out together. That's what equal partners do. And Darius, this war you're expecting? I'll fight it with every resource I have, but I won't force you to be part of it. You can be my queen without being my weapon. What if I want to be both?" Thorn went very still. "What? What if I want to fight?" The words felt right as she said them. "Not because you need me to, but because I need to. Because I'm done being broken and afraid. Because Marcus and Darius and everyone who tried to destroy me, they need to know they failed." Something blazed in Thorn's eyes. Pride, maybe, or recognition. "Then we fight together." "As equals?" "As equals," he confirmed. Sarah took a breath. This was it. The moment where she chose her future instead of having it chosen for her. The moment where she stopped being a victim and became something else entirely. "Then yes," she said. "I'll bond with you. I'll be your queen, your partner, your equal." She stepped fully into the room. "And together, we'll make everyone who tried to break us regret they didn't kill us when they had the chance." Thorn crossed to her in 3 strides and pulled her into a kiss that stole her breath and woke her wolf and made that phantom bond in her chest roar to life. When they broke apart, both of them were shaking. "The court is waiting," he said against her lips. "Let them wait." Sarah pulled back enough to meet his eyes. "I need you to promise me something first. Anything. Promise me you'll be honest with me. Always. No more secrets, no more half-truths. If we're doing this as equals, I need complete honesty." "I promise." Thorn's hand cupped her face. "No more secrets." "Good." She took another breath. "Then let's go show your court what a real alpha queen looks like." The ceremony awaited. So did war, danger, and a future neither of them could predict. But for the first time in years, Sarah wasn't afraid. She was ready. If you're still listening to this story up to this point, why don't you subscribe to this channel to continue getting impactful daily stories like this? We would be most grateful if you can do that to help boost this video to reach everyone. Thank you. Chapter 5. The ceremonial hall glowed with 1,000 candles, their flames casting dancing shadows across ancient stone walls. Every pack from the summit had assembled, some in support, others watching with barely concealed hostility, all of them waiting to see if the Alpha King's gamble would pay off or destroy them all. Sarah stood at the entrance in her ceremonial gown, Kenna at her side, and tried to remember how to breathe. "You can do this," Kenna murmured. "Just walk to the center, say the words, and let the bond do the rest. What if it doesn't work? What if I'm still too broken? Then we improvise, like we've been doing since the moment Thorn carried you out of that blizzard. Kenna squeezed her arm. But Sarah, I don't think you're broken at all. I think you're exactly what you need to be. The ceremonial drums began, deep, resonant beats that made Sarah's wolf lift her head with interest. This was it. No more running, no more hiding. Just her and Thorn and a bond that might save them both or destroy everything. She walked. Every eye tracked her movement as she made her way down the long aisle. She could feel their judgment, their fear, their curiosity, could sense the wolves who thought she was beneath a king and those who thought she was too dangerous to live. The weight of their attention should have crushed her. Instead, it made her stand taller. Thorn waited at the center of the ceremonial circle, magnificent in his formal attire, his eyes locked on her with an intensity that made her wolf keen. When she reached him, he held out his hand, an offering, not a command. She took it. The high priest began the ancient words, his voice carrying through the hall. Sarah barely heard him. All her attention was on Thorn, on the warmth of his hand, on the phantom bond in her chest that was finally starting to feel real. Do you, Thorn Blackridge, Alpha King of the Northern Territories, accept this Omega as your true mate? The priest intoned. Do you swear to protect her, honor her, and share your strength with her as equals before the moon? I do. Thorn's voice rang clear. I accept Sarah Ashwood as my true mate, my equal, my queen. I swear to protect and honor her with my life, and to share my power as freely as I share my heart. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Those weren't the traditional words. Thorn had just publicly committed to something unprecedented. Do you, Sarah Ashwood, accept this Alpha as your true mate? The priest turned to her. Do you swear to stand beside him, to share your power, and to bind yourself to him as equals before the moon? This was it, the moment where she chose her fate. Sarah looked at Thorn, at this powerful, complicated man who'd offered her something no one else ever had, a real choice, who'd shown her what partnership could look like when it wasn't built on fear and control. I do, she said, her voice steady. I accept Thorn Blackridge as my true mate, my equal, my partner. I swear to stand beside him and share my power freely. The explosion shattered every window in the hall. Glass rained down as the doors blew inward, smoke and flames pouring through the entrance. Screams erupted from the assembled wolves as warriors in dark armor flooded in, rogues mixed with what looked like pack soldiers, all of them bearing weapons and murder in their eyes. Protect the king, someone shouted. Thorn moved instantly, pulling Sarah behind him as Kenna appeared at their side, blade already drawn. The ceremonial circle became a war zone in seconds as Thorn's guards engaged the attackers. Darius, Thorn growled, his eyes bleeding to alpha gold. He's here. A figure stepped through the smoke and flame, tall, broad-shouldered, with features that might have been handsome if they weren't twisted with rage and ambition. He looked like Thorn, but crueler, harder. Hello, brother, Darius said, his voice carrying over the chaos. I hope you don't mind me crashing your wedding, but I couldn't let you complete that bond and ruin everything I've worked for. You're supposed to be dead, Thorn said flatly. Disappointing, isn't it? But I've been very much alive and very busy. Darius's gaze shifted to Sarah. There she is, the little lunar Omega who was supposed to be broken and delivered to me. Instead, you've turned her into a liability. Unfortunate. You're not taking her, Thorn snarled. I'm not taking her. I'm killing her. Darius gestured, and more warriors poured in. Kill the Omega. Wound the king. Let's end this farce. The attack was coordinated and brutal. Warriors surged forward while the assembled packs descended into chaos, some fighting for Thorn, others holding back, a few clearly working with Darius. Sarah found herself shoved toward the back of the hall by Kenna. Thorn's presence a shield between her and the advancing enemies. "We need to complete the bond," Marin shouted over the sounds of battle. She'd appeared from somewhere, her healer's bag clutched to her chest. "It's the only way." A blade whistled past Sarah's head. She ducked instinctively, her wolf screaming danger. The attacker came at her again, but Kenna intercepted, her movements precise and lethal. The rogue went down, but 3 more took his place. "There's too many," Kenna grunted, blocking a sword strike. "We can't hold them." A voice cut through the chaos, familiar and poisonous. "Looking for me, Your Majesty?" Morgana stepped out from behind a pillar, no longer wearing the elegant gowns of a noble lady. She was dressed for battle, a wicked-looking blade in her hand and triumph in her eyes. "Morgana," Thorn's voice was deadly soft. "You've been working with him all along." "Obviously," she smiled, beautiful and terrible. "Did you really think I'd let some broken Omega take what was meant to be mine? I've been Darius's eyes and ears in your court for years. Every move you've made, every plan you've formed, we've known about it." "You tried to poison me," Sarah said, the pieces clicking together. "At the dinner." "That was a test, actually, to see how protective dear Thorn would be. And how competent your new beta female was." Morgana's expression turned sharp. "You should have died in that blizzard, little Omega. Would have saved us all a lot of trouble." She moved with shocking speed, blade aimed straight for Sarah's heart. Kenna blocked the first strike, but Morgana was faster than she looked, trained and vicious. Their blades rang together as they fought, and Sarah saw blood. Couldn't tell whose. "Sarah!" Thorn was fighting his way toward her, cutting through rogues with brutal efficiency. But there were too many, and Darius himself had engaged him. The 2 brothers locked in combat that shook the ground. Sarah's wolf surged, desperate to help, to protect. And with it came that cold power, unfurling inside her like wings. She could feel it responding to the danger, to the fear and chaos all around her. Could feel it wanting to lash out, to destroy everyone who threatened her mate. No, she thought fiercely, not destruction, protection. The power shifted direction. Instead of reaching for the enemies, it reached for the wounded. For the pack members bleeding on the floor, the guards who'd taken injuries defending the king, even the wolves who'd frozen in terror as the battle raged around them. Silver light exploded outward from Sarah's body. Everyone froze, weapons suspended mid-strike as the lunar power washed through the hall. But instead of pain, it brought healing. Wounds closed, bleeding stopped, broken bones knit together. The wolves who'd been on the edge of death found themselves pulled back from the brink. "Impossible," Darius breathed. "You're using lunar power to heal?" "She's not a weapon," Thorn said. His voice filled with something like wonder. "She never was." But the display of power had cost Sarah. She swayed, exhausted, as the silver light faded. Kenna caught her before she fell, positioning herself between Sarah and Morgana. "That was very impressive," Morgana said, circling them like a predator. "But it won't save you. You're drained now, vulnerable." She lunged again, and this time Kenna wasn't fast enough to fully block. The blade sank into Sarah's shoulder, white-hot pain exploding through her body. She heard Thorn roar, heard Kenna's shout of rage, but everything was getting fuzzy around the edges. Then Morgana jerked, her eyes going wide. She looked down at the blade protruding from her chest, then back at Kenna, who'd driven her secondary knife home with lethal precision. "For the Queen," Kenna said coldly. Morgana collapsed, dead before she hit the ground. The battle raged on, but Sarah barely noticed. The wound in her shoulder was bleeding heavily, and her vision was graying out. She heard Thorn calling her name, felt his presence suddenly beside her, his hands pressing against the wound. "Stay with me," he commanded. "Sarah, stay with me." "Can't," she gasped. "Tired, too tired." A blade burst through Thorn's chest. Sarah watched in horror as Darius withdrew his sword, his face twisted with savage satisfaction. Thorn fell forward, blood spreading across his formal attire, his eyes going distant with shock. "Thorn!" Sarah's scream was raw and broken. She caught him as he fell, his weight bearing them both down. Blood, so much blood, spreading across her hands, her dress, the stone floor. "Had to make sure," Darius said, breathing hard. "Couldn't risk you completing the bond. This way is cleaner." He raised his blade to finish them both. Thorn's remaining guards swarmed him, forcing him back. But it was too late. The damage was done. Sarah could feel Thorn's life bleeding out, could see the curse rising to the surface as his body tried and failed to heal. Dark veins were spreading across his skin, and his breathing had gone shallow and rapid. "No, no, no," Sarah whispered, her hands pressing uselessly against the wound. "Marin, help him." "The curse is accelerating," Marin said, appearing beside them with her bag. Her face was grave. "The injury triggered it. Sarah, you need to complete the bond now. It's the only thing that might save him." "I don't know how. Your wolf knows. Let her guide you." Sarah closed her eyes, reaching for her wolf. The connection was stronger now, clearer. Her wolf was there immediately, pressing against her consciousness with urgency. Bond. Complete bond. Save mate. "But the ceremony wasn't finished," Sarah said desperately. "We didn't say the final words." "Words don't make bonds," Marin said. "Intention does. Choose him, Sarah. Choose to bind yourself to him completely. Your wolf will handle the rest." Around them, the battle was turning. Thorn's forces were pushing back the rogues, but it was chaos. Darius was still fighting, still dangerous, and Thorn was dying in her arms. Sarah looked down at her mate, at this complicated, honorable man who'd given her choices when he had none himself, who'd offered her partnership instead of submission, who'd loved her broken edges and called them strength. She couldn't lose him. Not now. Not after finally choosing to trust again. But completing the bond while he was dying, with her own power unstable and her wolf still healing, it could kill them both. Could go wrong in 1,000 ways. Marin had said as much during training. If the bond failed, if her power overwhelmed them both, the resulting explosion could destroy half the hall. Could kill everyone here. Or, her wolf whispered, it could save him. Save us. Make us whole. Sarah made her choice. She pressed her forehead to Thorn's, ignoring the blood and chaos around them. Reached for that phantom warmth in her chest that had been growing stronger since the moment she'd decided to trust him. Let her wolf surge forward, carrying with it all her intention, all her hope, all her desperate love for this man she'd only just started to know. "I choose you," she thought. "I choose us. I choose this bond." The connection slammed into place like lightning. Sarah gasped as the bond roared to life, no longer phantom but blazingly real. She could feel Thorn's pain, his fading strength, the curse eating through him like acid. Could feel his wolf, barely conscious but still fighting. Could feel everything that made him him. His devotion to his people, his bone-deep loneliness, his desperate hope that she would be enough to save him. And deeper, underneath the curse, she found something else. Power that didn't belong to him. Power that had been twisted and stolen, forced into a vessel that couldn't contain it. Power that tasted like moonlight and felt ancient. Sarah followed that power to its source and saw the truth. Thorn's father hadn't cursed him with dark magic. He'd killed Thorn's mother, a lunar Omega who'd hidden her nature, and stolen her power in a ritual that had corrupted it completely. That poisoned power had transferred to Thorn when he'd killed his father, a final act of cruelty from beyond the grave. Thorn wasn't cursed. He was carrying his mother's stolen essence, twisted into something toxic. And Sarah was lunar-born herself, connected to that same ancient power. She could cleanse it, could take her mate's mother's power and make it clean again, make it hers. "Our mother," her wolf corrected gently. "Pack, family, ours to protect now." Sarah reached for that poisoned power and pulled it into herself. It fought her, corrupted and vicious, trying to destroy rather than be healed. But Sarah had spent 2 years surviving Marcus's poison. She knew how to transmute darkness into strength. The power flowed into her, burning and freezing in equal measure. She felt it trying to overwhelm her, felt the madness that had driven Thorn's father to murder. But she also felt Thorn through the bond, lending her his strength, his determination, his absolute faith that she could do this. Together, she thought, we do this together. She pulled the power through their bond, filtering it through both of them. Where it had been twisted, their combined strength straightened it. Where it had been corrupted, their bond purified it. And where it had been stolen, they claimed it freely. Thorn's mother's power returning to where it belonged, but clean now. Whole. Sarah's body lit up with silver light so bright it hurt to look at. Thorn's wound began to close, the dark veins receding as the curse dissolved. Around them, that purified lunar power spread outward in waves, healing the wounded, strengthening the loyal, and driving back Darius's forces with sheer radiance. Darius himself was caught in the wave. He screamed as it hit him, stumbling backward, his corrupted warriors falling unconscious around him. "No!" he shouted. "This is impossible, you can't." "We can," Sarah said, her voice resonating with power that was finally fully hers. "And we just did." The light faded slowly, leaving behind a hall full of stunned wolves and 2 bodies at the center. Sarah and Thorn, wrapped around each other, the mate bond blazing between them like a star. Thorn opened his eyes. They were clear, no curse, no darkness, just the storm gray she'd come to know. He looked at her with wonder, his hand coming up to cup her face. "You saved me," he whispered. "We saved each other," Sarah corrected. "That's what equals do." He kissed her then, deep and claiming and full of a devotion that made her wolf sing. When they broke apart, the entire hall was watching, but instead of fear or judgment, she saw respect. Awe, even. "Behold," the high priest said, his voice shaking with emotion. "The first true Alpha King and Lunar Queen in 3 centuries. The bond is complete, the oath is sealed." Cheers erupted from Thorn's loyal wolves. Even some of the neutral packs joined in, clearly impressed by what they'd witnessed. The bonding ceremony had become a battlefield, and they'd emerged victorious in every possible way. Kenna appeared beside them, bloodied but grinning. "You two are terrible at traditional ceremonies, but I'll admit, that was memorable." "Where's Darius?" Thorn asked, standing and pulling Sarah up with him. He kept her close, one arm wrapped around her waist as if he couldn't bear to let her go. "Captured," Kenna reported. "So is what's left of his army. We've rounded up the traitors. It's done." "Marcus?" "Already imprisoned from the hearing. He's singing like a bird now that Darius has fallen, giving us names and locations." Kenna's expression hardened. "We'll need time to root out all the conspirators, but the immediate threat is contained." Thorn nodded, then turned to address the assembled court. His voice, when he spoke, carried the weight of command and the unmistakable power of an Alpha King who'd just survived the impossible. "The attacks tonight were orchestrated by my brother, Prince Darius, who has been working to undermine this kingdom for years. He corrupted pack members, hired rogues, and attempted to murder your queen during a sacred ceremony." Thorn's eyes swept the crowd. "Those who fought with him will face trial. Those who stood with us have our gratitude. And those who watched and did nothing, remember that you failed to act when your king and queen needed you." Some wolves had the grace to look ashamed. "The kingdom has a lunar queen now," Thorn continued, "and she has proven tonight that she is not a weapon to be feared, but a protector to be valued. She healed our wounded. She drove back our enemies. She saved my life and cleansed a curse that would have destroyed us all." He pulled Sarah closer. "Anyone who threatens her threatens the crown itself. Anyone who harms her will answer to both of us. Is that understood?" "Yes, my king." The response came from every loyal throat. Sarah felt the weight of their acceptance, their respect. It should have terrified her. She was a queen now, with all the responsibility that entailed. Instead, she felt right, like she'd finally found where she belonged. A commotion at the entrance made everyone turn. A small delegation was pushing through the crowd. Wolves Sarah didn't recognize wearing the colors of Moonhaven Pack. Her birth pack. An older man stepped forward, his features weathered but familiar. Her father. Behind him stood her mother, her former alpha, and several pack elders. "Queen Sarah," her father said, his voice uncertain. "We've come to congratulate you, and to request that you return home, to Moonhaven, where you belong." The audacity of it struck Sarah silent for a moment. These people had sold her to Marcus, knowing exactly what would happen. Had traded her safety for their own comfort, and now they wanted to claim her because she'd become powerful? "Return home?" she repeated slowly. "Yes." Her mother stepped forward, tears in her eyes that might have been genuine. "We made mistakes, sweetheart. We were afraid. But you're our daughter and—" "No." The word came out flat and final. "I was your daughter, before you sold me to a monster, before you let him break me to hide what I was." "Sarah, please." "You knew," Sarah said, her voice strengthening. "You knew I was lunar-born. You knew what I could become. And instead of protecting me, teaching me, helping me, you sold me to someone you thought would destroy me before I became dangerous." She stepped forward, thorns solid at her back. "Well, you failed. I survived. I manifested. And I am dangerous, to anyone who threatens my pack." "We're your pack," her father insisted. "No." Sarah looked at the wolves standing around her. Thorn, Kenna, Marin, the guards who'd fought for her, the court that had witnessed her rise. "These are my pack. The people who protected me when I was weak, who trained me when I was lost, who stood with me when I was terrified. This is my family, not you. Never you again." Her father's face crumpled. "Sarah, you have no claim to me," she said firmly. "No right to my name or my presence or any part of who I've become. I reject Moonhaven Pack. I reject you as my family. I am Queen Sarah Blackridge now, and I belong to the crown and to the wolves who earned my loyalty." The formal rejection hit her birth pack like a physical blow. Her mother gasped, her father stumbled, and the alpha looked like he might argue, until Thorn stepped forward, his alpha presence flooding the hall. "You heard your queen," he said softly, dangerously. "Leave, and be grateful I'm letting you walk out alive after what you did to her." They left, broken and disgraced, and Sarah felt nothing but relief. The celebrations went long into the night, though they were subdued by the battle that had preceded them. Sarah and Thorn stayed for the toasts and formal acknowledgments, playing their roles as king and queen, but both of them were exhausted down to their bones. Finally, as dawn approached, they escaped to Thorn's chambers. Their chambers now, truly. Marin checked them both one final time, pronounced them healthy if depleted, and left them alone. Sarah collapsed onto the bed, still in her blood-stained ceremonial gown. "That was the worst wedding I've ever been to." "Really?" Thorn stretched out beside her. "I thought it was memorable." "Your brother tried to kill me." "True, but you saved my life, completed our bond, and became the first lunar queen in 3 centuries. So overall, I'd call it a successful evening." Sarah laughed despite herself, the sound tired but genuine. "You have very low standards for success. Or very high standards for my mate." Thorn rolled onto his side, propping his head on his hand. "How do you feel? The bond. Can you feel it now?" Sarah closed her eyes and reached for that connection between them. It was there, blazing and real, no longer phantom or uncertain. She could feel Thorn's exhaustion, his relief, his absolute devotion. Could feel his wolf pressed close to hers, content and protective. "I can feel everything," she admitted. "It's overwhelming. It'll settle, get easier to filter." He brushed a strand of hair from her face. "But Sarah, What you saw when you cleansed the curse. About my mother. Did you— I saw it all, she confirmed quietly. Your father killed her, stole her power. That's what was poisoning you. I never knew she was lunar-born. She hid it so well. But it makes sense now. Why my father was so obsessed with eliminating them. Why he pushed through those execution laws. Thorn's voice was heavy. He murdered his own mate to take her power. And she waited 20 years for revenge through you. Sarah took his hand. The power we purified. It was hers. She left it for you, even corrupted. A gift from beyond death. Then I'm grateful it found you. That you were strong enough to make it clean again. He kissed her palm. My mother would have liked you, I think. Kenna said something earlier, about other lunar omegas, the ones who went into hiding centuries ago. Thorn's expression shifted to something calculating. The old texts mentioned them, bloodlines that went underground, families that hid their nature to avoid execution. If they're still out there, then they're in danger. From people like Darius and Marcus who want to use them, or from Pax who fear them. Sarah sat up slightly. We should find them, offer them sanctuary, protection. Build a network of lunar-born wolves under crown protection? Thorn considered it. It would be unprecedented, controversial. Some Pax would see it as you gathering an army. Let them. Sarah's voice was firm. I spent too long being afraid of what I was. If there are others like me out there, hiding and scared, they deserve better. They deserve to know they're not alone. Thorn studied her for a long moment, then smiled. Have I mentioned that you're going to be a magnificent queen? Once or twice. Well, let me mention it again. He pulled her down for a kiss that was soft and sweet and full of promise. You're magnificent. You're powerful. And you're mine. Ours, Sarah corrected against his lips. Equal partners, remember? How could I forget? They fell asleep wrapped around each other as the sun rose over the kingdom. Outside, guards patrolled the grounds, healers tended the wounded, and servants began cleaning up the destruction from the battle. Darius and Marcus sat in prison cells, waiting for judgment. And somewhere, hidden across the territories, other lunar-born wolves lived in secret, not yet knowing that the world had changed, that they had a queen now who understood what they were, who would fight for them. Sarah's story was far from over. There would be trials to oversee, conspirators to root out, a kingdom to rebuild. There would be wolves who feared her, and those who tried to use her. There would be battles ahead, both political and physical. But for now she slept in her mate's arms, the bond between them singing strong and true. Her wolf was whole and content. Her power was hers to command. And she was finally, truly home. The first lunar queen in 3 centuries had claimed her throne, and she was just getting started. Epilogue. 3 months later, Sarah stood in what had once been a dusty archive room and was now the beginning of something extraordinary. Shelves lined the walls, filled with texts Marin had helped her collect, everything ever written about lunar-born wolves, their abilities, their history. Found another one, Kenna called from across the room, holding up a leather-bound journal. Looks like a family diary from 200 years ago. Mentions a daughter with moon-touched abilities who was sent east to marry into a merchant family. Add it to the list, Sarah said, marking another location on the massive map spread across the table. Red pins marked confirmed historical sightings. Blue pins marked current leads. There were dozens of them. Thorn entered, fresh from a council meeting, and wrapped his arms around her from behind. Through their bond, she felt his satisfaction, his pride, his absolute contentment with how things had turned out. How's the hunt going? He asked. Slow but steady. Kenna thinks she's identified at least 3 families that might have lunar bloodlines. We've sent carefully worded inquiries offering crown protection if they need it. Any responses? Not yet. They're scared. Centuries of hiding doesn't disappear overnight. Sarah leaned back against his chest. But they will, eventually. Once word spreads that it's safe now. Because of you. Because of us. She turned in his arms. How was counsel? Tedious, but productive. Darius's trial is set for next month. Marcus has agreed to testify in exchange for his life. Thorne's expression darkened. Though I'd rather just execute them both and be done with it. Tempting. But we need to do this properly. Show the Pax that even traitors get justice under our rule. When did you become so wise? When I bonded with a king and had to start thinking like a queen. Sarah smiled. It's exhausting. Then let's take a break. Thorne pulled her toward the door. I want to show you something. He led her through the palace to a wing she'd never explored. Older, quieter, clearly not used for state functions. At the end of a long corridor, he opened a door to reveal a bedroom that had been closed for years. This was my mother's room, he said quietly. I had it sealed after she died. Couldn't face going through her things. But I thought, now that we know what she was, maybe there's something here, something that could help. They spent hours searching through trunks and drawers, finding the remnants of a life cut short, dresses and jewelry, books and letters, and finally, hidden in a false bottom of her wardrobe, a small leather book bound with a lock that responded to Sarah's lunar power. Inside were names, addresses, coded notes about bloodlines and abilities. She was tracking them, Sarah breathed. Your mother was trying to find other lunar-born wolves, trying to build a network before your father killed her. Then we'll finish what she started. Thorne's voice was firm. We'll find them all, offer them sanctuary, build something that can't be destroyed by one tyrant's fear. Sarah looked at the book, at the map in the archive, at her mate standing beside her. 3 months ago, she'd been dying in the snow, broken and alone. Now she was a queen with purpose, a mate with power, and a mission that might change everything. Your mother would be proud, she said. So would yours. Thorne took her hand. Both of them would be proud of what you've become. Through their bond, Sarah felt his absolute certainty, felt his love, fierce and unwavering, felt her wolf pressed close to his, content and whole. The work ahead would be hard. There would be setbacks and betrayals, resistance and fear. But they would face it together, equal partners, bonded mates, the first lunar queen and her alpha king in 3 centuries. And somewhere across the territories, other lunar-born wolves would hear the news, would learn that they weren't alone anymore, that they had a queen who understood them, a kingdom that would protect them, and a future they could finally claim. The winter had been brutal, but spring was coming. And it would be magnificent. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Subscribe, like, and share this video to continue listening to this type of story daily, and also to appreciate this community too. I would like to hear your wonderful opinion about this story. Please comment below.